something went wrong? Oh, God. This is definitely about to be about loot crates, isn't it? Kids are definitely addicted to gaming now.
Games. They've been my main
Or
hobby for
addicted to
most of my
gambling.
life, and now I make videos about video games, which is great. But recently, I've been analysing new games and critiquing new systems, and I've noticed a slow but insidious trend toward games becoming more and more monetized, but not fairly monetized. Anti-player monetized. It's the feeling you get when you look at a battle pass in a game you've already paid full price for. It's the tiny slither of sadness when a game you want has different exclusive levels for different consoles and you'll know you'll never get to experience every part of that game now. It's that cosmetic you want, costing 1,005
I didn't even realize
but the gems are...
I realized that they had cosmetics that were different for systems, but I didn't know they had different levels. Like, that's honestly kind of crazy. Oh, God. Now I'm definitely worried because, I mean, I wonder if that's just going to transfer over to the stuff that I'm already doing. But, I mean, it's definitely crazy with Call of Duty and stuff because they even have guns that are literally stronger sometimes when you buy a variant or a blueprint out of the store than the actual gun itself, which is crazy.
Are sold in packs of 1,004. It's the knowledge that year on year the microtransactions from FIFA Ultimate Team alone make more money than Elden Ring's entire sale run. It's the unfortunate reality of...
Oh, and I know too, like they were even saying, I think it was something with Fortnite and something with it was either Apex or Call of Duty where if you bought like just the basic amount, it's like they put in their system or in their thing to make it to where you automatically had no choice, but like whatever you were left over with would never be enough to like purchase something else. So like if you purchased one item, you would always be left with just enough to where you only needed like 100 or 200, which you could never buy 100 or 200. You had to buy a full another amount of coins in order to buy a second item. And that's how they like would get you to buy the second item. So they'd be like, oh, well, I already have 200. I only need 300 or whatever more. Like, oh, but then I can't get 300. I got to get 800 or 1,000 at a time. And then you're like, well, shit, I might as well just get another $10 or get another $20 worth. It's crazy. It just keeps you in like this loop.
Gaming after the marketing executives took over, and it's hard to explain exactly how or when it changed, but explaining things is what I do. So let's go back to the start of gaming and work out when this whole mess started. And then I'll actually pinpoint the exact thing, the specific design choice which makes new games feel wrong. Welcome, I'm JoeNoJosephOfficial. Let's work out what the hell went wrong with the monetization of gaming. As usual, a massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon, Twitch, and YouTube who keep the channel alive.
Shout out to the homies.
How you can support at the end. For now, let's begin. Let's go back to the 1980s and early 1990s. The video game revolution was kicking off, but home consoles weren't yet mainstream, so we went to arcades. You put your money in and played a game, effectively making arcades the socially accepted pay-to-play model. There's no denying arcades were bloody expensive. I remember dropping way more than I should have done to complete Time Crisis, but while this was expensive, there was a very simple relationship between the game, the money, and the player. Pay money, get access to the whole game. Victory depends on your skill. Game designers knew it was a simple transaction, and they knew someone would simply play as long as they were able to, so they had to make the game hard so you would die more, and so pay more. This is why the Turtles game had that underwater bit. It's why House of the Dead bosses were damage sponges. It's why Ghosts and Goblins was everything that Ghosts and Goblins is. In the early days of home consoles, when people would rent games, we even called difficult levels blockbuster levels, designed to make the rental period longer and so you'd have to keep renewing it. So why don't these money-hungry games make us feel the same way as modern money-hungry games? It was like that? Well, it's because the trade of money for game was simple, and there was nothing insidious about the transaction itself. You knew what you were giving, and you knew what you were getting. And if you were to break down the design time of a game into a pie chart at that point, it might look something like this. Story, graphics, narrative connections between them, mechanics, marketing, playtesting, and then how much a go at the arcade costs. There was a lot going on in the development of a game at these times, but it's all focused on making a game good, because at that time, good games make the most money. When a company discovered a successful game, they couldn't just augment the original with downloadable content or extra levels because that technology didn't exist yet. They'd have to make a complete sequel, and so gamers got more games. Jump forward to the mid-1990s, the home console market had taken off. You buy a console, you buy a game, and then you play that game. Now, the whole lives mechanic in games at this time was a holdover from the arcade design space and wasn't actually needed in home consoles because you didn't need the player to put more money in. Dying when you have 3 lives, then restarting from your last save, or just dying and restarting from the save anyway with no arbitrary life limit was functionally the same thing, but design moves slowly. Away from the arcade model, you no longer paid per play and you now paid per game, and you then played as much as you wanted. Games were expensive, of course, but when you bought a game, it was complete. If it shipped with bugs, it would just have bugs forever. If it shipped with secret unlockable stuff, it would have that forever. When you owned the game, you owned the ability to play as much as you want of the complete experience. And this was a very simple and fair transaction. While the arcade was, here's a game, pay us to have a go, the console was, here's a game, pay us to keep it and play it whenever. But the home gaming scene wasn't just consoles, it was also PCs. Now, back then PC gaming wasn't as mainstream as it is today, but it did come with one major advantage. Because the PC held a load of data files on its hard drive instead of just reading them from the disk or cart like a console, developers could create additional content for a game and sell that. Like the incredible RPG Baldur's Gate, releasing in 1998, and then the multi-hour-long expansion Tales of the Sword Coast in 1999. This was a time in gaming where developers could develop additional content, but when they did, it was usually
I still
a
think
lot
that
of content.
people that played like computer games and stuff back then were so cool to me, bro. It used to blow my mind because I was always like, wow, they're like 10 times ahead of the curve. Like, it's just crazy. And now like everybody's like almost in the like PC gaming wave, you know?
Content. PC games saw expansion after expansion, Morrowind seeing the Tribunal and Blood Moon expansions, Diablo 2, then the Lord of Destruction expansion, and all the extra modules for Neverwinter Nights. This was additional content for a game without being a sequel, but again, gamers didn't hate this because the transaction was very simple to understand and it felt fair. You gave them money, you got an experience designed to be the most fun it could possibly be. The biggest difference in this era is there's no trickery. You're not being manipulated. It's just a straight up understandable product. If we again take the idea of breaking down game development time into a pie chart, you've probably got a few new bits to the pie by now. Magazine adverts and articles, some TV ads, and the arcade price replaced with a box price. But it is still mostly make a good game and you will make good money. Then in 2004, online gaming really started to kick off, with World of Warcraft being released, but Blizzard aren't the bad guys in this story, at least not yet. For now, we need to look east to
he was like, we're not gonna smoke with them yet, but we coming back.
Story.
Don't you worry.
The small toy capsules Gachapon had been popular for years. You put money into a Gachapon machine and get a random toy of varying rarity.
This is like still really popular.
Like collecting things and people who like random chance or mystery. It's basically gambling on a rather inconsequential level, but the psychology behind it is very, very powerful. So MapleStory introduced an in-game Gachapon style system. 100 yen got you a ticket for a random in-game item, and many people consider this to be the first example of a random loot box. But more importantly, this was the first moment in mainstream video games where you could pay money and not know what you were getting. You were no longer paying for the game or for an established product, you were paying for the mystery. The ephemeral moment of what if between purchase and eventual prize. And this system made a lot of money. Because MapleStory was online, and other people could see what you won. So it was no longer about having the game and enjoying the game, it was now about a sense of community and prestige when you have something somebody else doesn't. If you make your game multiplayer, competition amongst players becomes a thing, and there are a subset of players who enjoy being seen as the person with the best stuff. And unlike real Gachapon machines, which were either a physical distance to travel to or had a queue by them or sometimes just sold out, virtual Gachapon tickets were unlimited, entirely within the company's control and could be bought constantly. MapleStory already had the in-game items made, so they were selling the excitement of chance, and they were tapping into the collector and completionist mentality of many hardcore gamers. So game developers began to see they didn't actually need to sell a gaming experience anymore. They could
they needed to sell a slot machine, pretty much,
of potential.
Just like literally, what the
hell?
hell?
Investors realized.
Bro, I literally never looked at it like this.
At least some game development.
I never saw it from this perspective. It's kind of crazy. We've literally just paused
within the game, designed simply to extract money from the player after they had started playing, but without giving them a complete new game. This is the first part of the puzzle for where we are today. So let's put this idea of sell random chance into a little box. A box of all the design tricks which don't favour the player, or make the game necessarily any better. A box of design tricks which don't make you think, oh my god, this is amazing, I need to tell all my friends, but instead use the game as a simple vehicle for additional monetization. Now, the techniques in this box are not games themselves. They cannot exist on their own. They aren't symbiotic with a game because they don't enhance each other. They are parasitic because they need the game to survive but don't necessarily improve it. We'll call this box Abusive Monetization Strategies, or for a more catchy title, Pandora's Box of Bad Design. The main danger of this box is, if we were to take the pie chart of game development time now, knowing that this box exists and knowing the techniques inside it can make a decent amount of money, the finance people know they need to find space for the techniques within this box somewhere on the pie chart, which means something else must lose out. Jump forward 2 years to 2006. The Western gaming market hasn't yet discovered the mass appeal and psychological dominance.
So does this mean like, oh my god, I can't pause it.
They have discovered something just as important.
So does that like literally just mean that eventually, like, you're not even going to be like actually playing anything? It's just going to be like you're clicking things, or like more or less like it's, I feel like it's like everything is just almost going into like casino style shit where you just press one button, it flashes a bunch of lights and goes ding 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 ding, you know what I mean? Oh god, don't do this to us. Don't tell me. It's crazy because it's like it's almost like we're being conditioned and don't even know it, you know?
Gamers will pay money to look different, and it all kicks off with this stupid horse. Now, I've made a complete video on the history of this horse, but the short story is The Elder Scrolls Oblivion was a great game with some great DLC, Knights of the Nine and the Shivering Isles. But you could also pay a few dollars to give your horse armor. Now, it's important to understand this is completely cosmetic. It doesn't actually make your horse any better in combat or defend it, but you can buy it. And people did. In fact, a lot of people bought it, and this highlighted another thing. Making a game takes a long time, but once the main game is made, the development time it would take to make a cosmetic for that game is relatively short, and that cosmetic can be sold for a small amount of money, but it can be sold many times. The cost is micro, but the sales volume is high, hence microtransaction. Separate from the idea of a complete expansion, which would expand a game and make the game experience bigger, a microtransaction adds hardly anything beyond the original experience. It's almost inconsequential, but it's not free. So now developers know expansions are a bit risky, but microtransactions are very safe and very small. Even if they don't sell, it's not a great waste of developer time. So the focus shifted away from selling a main game with lots of expansions to selling the main game and then lots and lots and lots and lots of small additional things. The problem with this is now developers had a vested interest in keeping the coolest cosmetics or the most fun little things out of the base game and instead releasing them as additional
which never made sense to me, because in my head when I hear that, like, I understand, like, this is how I think about it, right? The demonistic thing, like the demon way to do this would be to, like he said, create all of the coolest stuff and keep all of the coolest cosmetics to sell in the store rather than allowing you to unlock the game. But I would think you would take every idea you have, you would figure out what's cool and what's dope, right? You would take that, put that into the game, and then you would build on what you created after that. Like, don't take the ideas that you're having in the design stage and say, let's try and spread that out. No, like, after you release the game, look at the community, figure out what they get hype about, what kind of, like, certain outfits they think are cool, and then get people in the community or people around the, like, hypeness of it to create designs for you and then sell that on the store. And I feel like the gaming companies just don't want to add another person to the pot. I think that's what's always so bad about it. They don't want to actually pay the artists and stuff like that, bro. Like, and it makes no sense to me because they make so much money. Like, what are you going to do with all that bread at the end of the day? You know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't make, it doesn't make sense. Like, I've always been a strong believer in there's enough money and enough, like, stuff out here for everyone to just be on top of the world. Like, for everybody, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, of course, like, not every person in the world could do the same thing because then there wouldn't be people in certain places doing other things, but I don't think that the world would ever work out that way. Everybody's always going to have different interests and be into different things. So that's why I feel like I'm able to say that pretty much anybody could do anything. You know what I mean? Like, literally, you, like, bro, whenever I hear stuff about people saying like, oh, I want to stream, or oh, I want to make reaction videos. I'm like, fuck yeah, bro, do that shit. Like, we need more people like sharing their thoughts and opinions, and like, be yourself, because people may not connect with me, but if you start streaming the stuff that you bring to the table, like, there might be a whole group of people that end up like transferring over to you because they're like, holy shit, I like your thought process. I like your mind. I feel like my mind relates to what you're saying way more than any of these other people. Like, it's like whenever your parents are like, wow, you had to listen to your mom say what I've been telling you for the last fucking 2 months. When she said it, somehow you believed it. It's like, nah, like, I just, I didn't have like a judged thought about what you had. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy, bro. I just started gameplay videos because of Joe. Keep going, gang. Keep going, gangy. And make sure you put them bitches in the Discord so we can watch them when you motherfucking upload, okay? Let's go. Sorry, YouTube, for pausing. I be getting in these rants. If you're new here, I love you, baby, all right? And you respect it. If you don't respect it, I'm sorry, because low-key, I understand. Like, listening to me talk like this when we're already watching a 30-minute video is crazy. Like, come on, I'm sorry.
Microtransactions, which is something
But suck my dick, okay?
we'll see happen more and more. And this absolutely does not favor the player, because it leads to an experience where you as a player, even though you have bought the game, when you sit down to play it, you do not feel like you have access to the whole game, because you don't. It used to be you bought a game and got a game. Now it's you buy a game and you get the main framework, which you need to pay more to flesh out. So let's add sell small additions to your game as microtransactions to the box of abusive monetization strategies, and as the box grows, so does the space it would need to take up on the game development pie. Now we head into 2009 to the rise of Facebook, and one of the cornerstones of casual gaming.
Oh my god. So is he saying that, like, they're almost now, like, you would think they would spend extra money to bring you extra content, but because you're not getting extra content, you're getting stuff that's already in the game, they're spending more time and attention trying to figure out what to sell you as extras rather than like actually trying to give you a really good game? Is that kind of what he was saying right there?
And monetization progression. Farmville. Farmville was everywhere in the late 2000s, made by Zynga, and these guys were masters because Facebook was everywhere. Everyone was on it, and even non-gamers were gaming, which sounds great. But they were burning through the game too quickly. They were enjoying it and then just moving on, which was not great because Facebook is all about retention. So Farmville did something really counterintuitive to increase player retention. They gave you daily energy so you couldn't progress more than a certain amount every day. Now these games were mostly played by people on phones and laptops, and people got bored pretty quickly. And one of the best ways to prevent boredom is to limit your time with something. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, as they say. So energy systems, limiting what actions you could take,
then you had to watch ads and all that shit,
things, and you couldn't progress them quicker. By making the player progress only in short but intense bursts and then wait for their next fix of game, you either force them to pay more money to gain more energy or to skip the timers, or you make them return tomorrow. And this is game design focused on the formation of daily habits. The psychological power of the habit has been studied for years. Motivational speakers talk about them, self-help books push them, and now gaming companies were looking to use them as a way to turn players into users. Because it wasn't just about the game being fun anymore. The focus wasn't on giving the player the best experience you could give them and letting the player enjoy it at their own pace. The focus was about the game being effective at encouraging a specific behavior response from the user. Encouraging the user to return day after day is habit forming. Someone who plays your game habitually is more likely to remain playing even after the game itself has stopped being enjoyable. They're just continuing the habit. Along with this, game designers knew you would also have friends on Facebook that may not be playing the game, and they wanted those friends to play the game, which is why they put the mechanics in the game of share this achievement with your friend to get bonuses and get boosts. A huge amount of people began playing Facebook games.
And then every day you could like send people like an invite and it would give you extra energy as well. So then it was almost like you were baiting in all of your friends to also come in and spend money. Holy shit, it's fucking genius. I never really thought about it, but wow, it's literally genius. Oh man. Like I wonder how much money they brought in and how many different companies were calling them and being like, holy crap, this model is amazing. And I also wonder if this is something that they were able to like put some type of like coin it. What's the phrase called? where they would like own the like rights to like that other people being able to enforce this type of ritual based like system in their game. You know what I mean? What's that called? Like a trademark or something?
Not because they thought they would be the type of game they enjoy, but because they were doing their friend a favour by starting up. They were supporting their farm. They were joining their mafia. And just like MapleStory's gacha being viewed by the players in the game, you could share the progress of your farm. You could show off how far along you were, which spurred competition. So we can add limiting progression per day and encouraging you to invite your friends to start the game to give yourself advantages, or the ability to share your progression with the community, which is why achievements on almost all consoles and PCs are publicly viewable, into the box of abusive monetization strategies. And while habitually playing something isn't generating money in itself, it does keep the audience around longer so they can be exposed to other, more successful strategies. Now, some people will point out that paying to advance more or paying to skip timers is in some ways similar to the old arcade process of dying and then putting more coins in to continue, and it is similar, but there is a crucial difference. With an arcade game, you could, in theory, finish the game entirely on skill. These timers and energy bars in games such as Farmville cannot ever be finished on skill alone, because you will hit a wall that you will need to either wait for or pay to remove. But this wasn't everything. Nowhere near. Farmville had other strategies. You had timers and you could pay to make them progress faster, but not with money directly. Now you had to convert real money into a proprietary currency. In this case, farm bucks. And this is one of the most prevalent designs we still see used, because it does several psychological
in every
things
game almost
disgustingly
now.
well. If you can buy something directly from a game, you can see the cost in a currency that you understand. But if the game displays items in their own proprietary currency, such as gems or coins or platinum or farm bucks or whatever they want to call it, you have to make one mental step converting the currency from what you understand.
The amount of money I've spent on Balloons Tower Defense, just on like instant monkeys and extra money for like continuing like my my extra runs and whatnot. Oh my god, it's gotta be crazy. I'm scared to even look. Like, I've been playing that game since like the first one came out on PC, and I've been loving it ever since.
To what you don't understand. So all these things are now one mental step away from having real value, and that is hugely important, because even one step is further than most people are willing to go. So let's add that into the box. Proprietary in-game premium currency to obscure real-world value by a single step. Bonus points if it makes you convert the currency to multiple other in-game currencies, which is almost completely impossible to track in your own mind. So you need to buy the currency, and this is the next trick. The currency is usually sold in packs, and these packs are specifically sized to either be just under what you actually need or very, very close to the next best thing, making you consider the next pack up. For example, if you need 100 gems to buy something in the game and gem packs are sold in packs of 90 or 205, you may as well buy the 205 pack. But then there's a really good item in the game for 210, and you're only 5 gems short. But the next pack contains
this is what I was saying
gems.
earlier.
But there's a mega item for 505 gems, and you're only 5 gems shy of that now. You're not thinking about the number 505, you're thinking it's only 5 and then only another 5. Much smaller jumps for much higher jumps in value. You'd be a fool if you didn't take them, right? So
and you see how you can't even get the 200 and the other one and get both? You have to get all 3.
You will spend your unique in-game proprietary currency, but then you'll discover something else. The currency is non-refundable, and it is almost impossible to spend all of it. You'll always be left with some random number, like 4 gems or 2 bits of platinum. It's never 0. And this will bother you, because in your mind, that's a waste, and you don't like waste. And if you don't spend that currency, then the game is keeping it, and you've paid for that. But the only way to make this useful is to buy another currency pack. I mean, you'd be a fool if you didn't do that, right? You can't have premium currency just sitting there in strange, unspendable amounts. It's annoying, and it's by design. So add that to the box. But maybe you know all this, and you're not a fool.
And then every once in a while, they'll drop like 1 or 2 with like an extra value. See?
It's a limited time offer, and it's all for the low price of just under $1. Now, you'd definitely be a fool if you didn't buy this. If you've ever wondered why the intro packs
I buy it every time
are such good value, it's because studies have shown people who buy a single purchase are much, much more likely to make another purchase. So you want to make the first purchase really enticing. And it's because some phones need you to authorize in-app purchases. But once you have authorized one, it will not double check for any extra purchases. So you confirm that you want to buy the cheap pack, and then it doesn't double check for the expensive packs, because every screen between the player and a purchase is a moment they could doubt and reconsider. So you want to get those, "Are you sure you want to purchase this?" checks agreed with and out the way early. Unusually cheap intro microtransactions just to get you into a habit. Let's add
and that gets me too, because
while the box is looking pretty,
I'll just click it like 4 times, like, oh fuck it, I'll just buy a bunch of them.
To truly see how effective this ugly design can be, we only need to go forward 1 year to 2010 and look at FIFA's Ultimate Team mode. Now, I'm not really into football games.
It's just like
but
2K, you can't even play the game without spending money.
The game design shift really well. It shows how games have moved from being a fun experience by themselves to a fun enough framework that other monetization tactics will cling to like limpets. In FIFA, you can buy loot boxes, which contain random cards of players, and use these to build up your Ultimate Team. The Ultimate Team mode takes several of the box ideas and combines them, and now the Ultimate Team mode makes more money than the box sales of FIFA itself. In fact, since 2018, FIFA Ultimate Team has generated over $1 billion in revenue per year for EA. In 2021, they made $1.6 billion. And it happens every single year. And the cards you buy in the Ultimate Team for 1 year cannot be used in the next year, meaning the microtransactions now have a shelf life. Horse armor may last forever, but what if it didn't? What if you could make a player pay for it again and again every year? Let's add that to the box. Yearly repeating microtransactions. Now, as a developer, you'd look at this box, and think, wow, selling my game isn't the profitable thing anymore. It's what I can sell within the game. By now, the box of abusive monetization strategies is so big, it's almost impossible to ignore if you are making a game. 1 year later, in 2011, the MMORPG RuneScape is suffering. They had a major update.
This was a year I graduated high school, chat.
A huge majority of the player base hated, and this made them lose a lot of players. This is a mistake worthy of its own video, but the bottom line is, they are a monthly subscription game losing subscribing players, and they need to find a way to either recover paying members or to stem the tide of people leaving. Enter the loyalty program. Every month of membership, you now earn loyalty points, and you earn more for every consecutive month that you remain subscribed. And then you can spend loyalty points on cool exclusive cosmetics, or mechanically powerful auras and boosts. So now, cancelling your membership wasn't just a case of thinking, "I'm not enjoying the game, so I won't pay," which is a very simple, understandable, fair transaction. It's now a case of thinking, "I'm not enjoying the game, but if I unsubscribe, I break my loyalty streak and will earn far fewer loyalty points over the long run.
That's why we love you, Grandma.
Disadvantage if I ever do want to come back in the
Granny.
future," which is not as fair. The transaction used to be simple, but now we're putting the player in the position of give money even if you don't want to play because you don't want to break a habit. That's going in the box. And by now, the box is demanding a bigger and bigger slice of the game design pie chart. 2 years later, 2013 sees the release of Dead Space 3, the third installment in a terrific horror trilogy. Well, sort of. While Dead Space 1 and 2 were indeed terrific horror games with tension and pacing and balanced gameplay and great stories, Dead Space 3 did something strange. It took the idea of you being a lone engineer trapped on an infested spaceship, struggling against incredible odds, using only your small collection of mining tools and very limited ammunition to survive, and it added in the ability to let you buy in-game guns with real cash from the cash.
What? I had no idea that they had add-ons in Dead Space. What?
Shop. A horror survival game selling you in-game guns and ammo, completely defeating the atmosphere and vibe the game was going for. Selling players things they could use within your game to make the game easier. Let's add that to the box. That's effectively selling power. This one manages to out-monetize even the arcade. It would be like putting more coins into Time Crisis and getting a rocket launcher, or removing the time limit in Crazy Taxi. It sort of defeats the purpose of the original game. Along with Dead Space selling guns, we now see the MOBA game Dota 2 release what many consider the first major battle pass system. Now, when this craze started, I remember walking into gaming shops and seeing the
just
because
you saw Martin Luther King marching down the road doesn't mean anything. We respect you more for that. It's okay. We love you, baby.
Unlock a series of challenges or processes you can go through to unlock more stuff in the game, but they are time sensitive. So you buy the monthly battle pass, and if you play a certain number of hours, or kill a certain number of enemies, or achieve a certain number of whatever it wants you to do, you can advance along the battle pass and unlock new stuff. Now, you could just have the unlockable stuff be available for everyone to unlock anyway, but by limiting it to a timed battle pass, you're doing a few manipulative things. You're creating a fear of missing out, or FOMO. as players know if they don't have this month's battle pass, they may never get the full experience or that rare cosmetic ever again. So you are encouraging an unhealthy amount of gameplay, because if you're not advancing your battle pass, you're losing precious time.
I still don't understand this
discouraging
game.
players from enjoying any other game and forcing them to focus entirely on progression within yours. This design is of course at odds with the limit playtime technique, because they appeal to different demographics. Remember, a battle pass or limited time progression track doesn't always actively improve a game, but it does always increase that game's revenue, so throw it in the box. By now, even the concept of a fun, well-made game is starting to look like a horrifically augmented shadow of its former self. Imagine what a well-made game would look like if you tried to shoehorn in all of the techniques in this box. And unfortunately, eventually, you won't need to imagine. We're seeing it more and more. Later that same year, one of my favourite games comes out. Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
No,
a fantastic pirate game.
You can
There's just
buy
one
stuff
problem.
in Assassin's
Unless you own
Creed?
both a PlayStation and an Xbox and are willing to buy 2 copies of the game, you can never experience the full game. Black Flag featured console-exclusive levels, which not only fueled the petty console wars, but also highlighted the fact that marketing executives
Shut
were
up,
now
Lynn, we
powerful
love
enough
you.
to tell game
Stop
developers
it.
exactly what their players deserved. Or
They
more
always
importantly,
hate people
what
with
their
power. You got all the
non-players
power.
don't deserve. This is not player-focused design at all. And while I completely understand the power of console exclusives, when I walked into a game shop and picked up 2 copies of Black Flag and realised no matter what I choose, there is a mission I won't get to play because I don't have the right console, that didn't leave a good...
So, and I wonder, does that mean that your progress doesn't transfer? So you have to literally beat the game twice just to experience the whole game, pretty much?
Taste in my mouth. So while Dota may have started the Battle Pass idea, it was almost perfected 4 years later in 2017 by Fortnite Season 2, which replaced the Season Shop with a Battle Pass system. And then later in November of 2017, we witness a bit of gaming history, and it fills us all with a sense of pride and accomplishment. Star Wars Battlefront 2 was an amazing game which released back in 2005, not to be confused with Star Wars Battlefront 2, which was a mediocre game which released in 2017. It was a full-priced game and yet also had a loot box system in it along with premium currency system. This led to a Reddit user complaining that even though they'd bought the $80 deluxe version of the game, they still couldn't play as Darth Vader from day one. Unlocking Darth Vader means buying his hero crate, which costs 60,000 in-game credits.
What?
Or you can spend real money. Now, you can earn an average of 250 credits per 10-minute match at the time, so you'd have to grind for roughly 40 hours of constant gameplay, longer than the average completion time of most video games, to unlock a single rare character. Or you could pay crystals in the premium shop and spend those on hero crates and just hope. EA responded to this Reddit complaint saying the reason crates were so expensive or take so long to unlock is to give a sense of pride and accomplishment to players who did manage to unlock them. This becomes the most downvoted comment in Reddit history. So, locking premium parts of your full-priced game behind either hours of grind or spending
you would think
more
Darth
money to
Vader
unlock
would
the
be a
cool stuff
starting
before other
character.
people who bought
It's
the same game
fucking
as you.
Star
Now, it's
Wars,
important to
nigga.
understand that games having things locked
What the
within them is
fuck?
not necessarily bad design. One of my favourite games of all time is SSX Tricky, the snowboarding game. And as you play through that, you unlock new characters, new boards, and new tracks. Progression within a game, and rewarding that progression with new mechanics, new characters, and new areas is not bad. The problem was, progression wasn't the only way to unlock this. You could simply pay more money to get it immediately. And because it was a competitive game, people who paid the extra money were at an advantage over those who did not. This is a video about how newer games feel wrong, and it feels wrong to buy the same game as someone else and to know that they will have an advantage over you if they pay more. Throw that in the box of abusive monetization. Why not? It's going to work. And then 5 years later, Diablo Immortal happened. Now, I've already covered Diablo Immortal pretty extensively in the video The Diabolically Immoral Diablo Immortal and its follow-up about the legendary crests, because it took basically every idea from the big box of abusive monetization and...
Bro, am I not a gamer? I've never played like any of these games. I didn't even know you could buy stuff in half of these games. This is crazy. I beat Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Had no idea you could buy stuff in the game. Had no idea there was an alternate ending. Like, I'm so confused.
and sprinkled them liberally over a somewhat Diablo-looking game, including multiple premium currencies, a deliberately similar in-game item which functions slightly differently to a paid version of the same thing, and multiple battle passes all called different things. But don't worry,
I had
because
auto
everyone
fishers
assured
and
me
everything
that
in
Diablo
RuneScape.
Immortal was a mobile game, and thus would not be representative of the actual next Diablo game, which would be Diablo 4. Everyone told me Diablo 4 would be a full game by itself, with no cash shop, with gameplay first, and none of the strategies from the big box of badness. So of course there are various digital versions of the game, the more expensive ones giving you an accelerated battle pass bonus allowing you to progress quicker, and there is a cosmetic cash shop using its own proprietary currency. And if you're thinking Diablo doesn't need all these extra bells and whistles to be a good Diablo game, you are correct. These have not been added because they make the game better, they've been added because they make the game money. And then Darktide released, which is a full price game with an abusively priced cash shop, or you can grind for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to get some of the cheap things in that shop. And now we're here. So why have games become like this? Simple, because games are businesses. Games have been businesses since arcades, since consoles allowed you to buy the game and have it in your own home. They have always wanted to make money. But up until now, the best way to make the most amount of money was to make the best game you possibly could because people would buy it, and that was it. The transaction was finished. It was fair. The best way to make money on modern games is to make the best framework as a holder for these strategies. And companies have experimented with various methods to increase income over the years, from gacha loot boxes to pre-orders, console exclusive.
That's what still blows my mind, that they stopped doing DLCs. I still don't understand that. Like, they still drop like one game and then they give you like an update on it over the course of like 2 times maybe in the year, and then it's ass. And then you see nothing else new change with the game, you know? I don't know. And like, I just feel like DLCs were just so much better with stuff, bro.
Exclusives to battle passes, energy systems to just straight up selling power. And instead of hiring game designers, they hired psychologists to build habits, to reinforce addictive behaviors, to design gameplay loops which encourage spending. The problem was these techniques were never about the player having fun. They were about the user being monetized. And when a marketing executive pictures you playing a game, you aren't pictured smiling and laughing with friends. You're pictured opening your wallet and reaching for your credit card, because that's their goal. And eventually, the Pandora's box of abusive monetization strategies was so full of proven, effective techniques that making a game is often no longer about the game, at least not for the people in charge of the money. The game is now simply a life support system for as many of these systems as you can design into it. The game is a host, and the parasite of monetization has begun to take over, and the unfortunate reality is this works. Even with a breakout incredible success like Elden Ring, which won Game of the Year and sold over 18 million copies as of this video, at $60 a sale, that's over $1 billion in sales worldwide, that is still slightly shy of how much money Genshin Impact made this year. It is still shy of how much money FIFA Ultimate Team has made every year for the last 4 years. The reality is, when companies look at that pie chart of game development time and how they divide developer time or invested money, that big box of abusive monetization strategies, that Pandora's box of terribleness, is so effective, they would be hurting their own profit to not put at least some of the techniques in. The older designers simply didn't have the knowledge of this box, and even if they did, they didn't have the technology to act on it at the time. Modern design often puts the player into an awkward position where the game has spent more time focusing on the manipulative, abusive systems than it has on just being the best game it could be. So what is the exact choice which makes games feel wrong? Is it MapleStory's fault for adding Gachapon? Is it Oblivion's fault for the horse armor? Is it Dota's fault for the battle pass? FIFA's fault for the success of Ultimate Team?
No, it's our fault.
Is it Farmville's fault for mastering the addiction cycle? Or is it EA's fault for locking away Darth Vader?
It's our fault.
Unfortunately, it's kind of all of them. It's just the reality of games design today. You cannot close the lid on Pandora's box. Designers can't unknow the effectiveness of these techniques. And every game made for the rest of time has to either use them or actively choose to avoid them. So the exact choice that makes a game go from being the best it can possibly be to anti-player or anti-consumer is when a designer or a marketing executive stops thinking about how they can make the best game they're capable of and starts throwing some sly glances toward the box in the corner. And when they say, hey, this technique may not fit our game perfectly, but it's proven to make a lot of money. Do you think we could put it in our game? That is the moment any specific game goes downhill from what it could be from a player's perspective. And the worst part is that big evil box and all its dark design knowledge is constantly being added to. And when you play a new game and spot the cash shop and the battle pass and the premium currency and the awkward pack size and the loot boxes and the exclusive levels, and when you just feel
I can't wait to play this game.
That the game didn't have to do that, that's when you know that the pie chart of design of this game had at least a small slice dedicated to that stupid box. A small slice focused on making the game a little bit anti-player in the name of a lot of profit. But personally, I also know it can be very cathartic to be angry at a thing instead of a concept, so let's all just collectively agree to blame the stupid horse. Cheers for watching. Another massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon, Twitch, and YouTube who keep the channel
Shout out to
alive.
them.
You can
Oh,
support
man.
from only £1 a month. Check the description
Big shout
for
out
links.
to you guys. It's crazy, bro. It's crazy. It's because of people like that that even get him motivated enough to keep making these videos. So shout out to you guys for supporting him, bro. His fucking work ethic is crazy because the amount of effort he put into going back and finding all this information, even though, like, yeah, like, of course you can watch stuff or you can do little things, like, it still takes a lot to sit down and write all this out. Like, that takes a lot of effort. And that's fucking fire. Fire. Who was this? Big Daddy Heat? Come on, man. He nut on you, bro.